Well, hello everyone. How is everyone today?
Good.
Good.
Very good. Well, thank you all for joining us. We're really excited to have this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the participatory budgeting project that's going to happen in Syracuse, in the Syracuse City School District. My name is Tina Nabachi, and I'm with my colleague, Catherine Gerard. We are from the Program for the Advancement of Research on Conflict and Collaboration. We call ourselves PARC because that title is very challenging to say. So we're from PARC. We're an interdisciplinary research institution at the Maxwell School at Syracuse University. We do a lot of work around conflict and collaboration in lots of different areas, from the environment to intrastate and intrastate conflict. And one of the areas that we do a lot of work in is collaborative governance. And as part of collaborative governance, we really work to help organizations better cooperate and collaborate across their boundaries and to engage with the public. So this work that we're doing with Syracuse City School District around participatory budgeting is right in line with the research and the practice that we do here at PARC. And so we thought we would spend a little bit of time today talking to you about the very exciting PB process that all of you are about to undertake in the district. Catherine, do you want to say anything else about PARC before we kind of get started?
I think you talked about PARC. I was wondering if our colleagues who are the steering committee, Suzanne and crew, if they wanted to say anything to open the training.
Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't close to the phone. This is Suzanne, and I'm here with all the folks from the budget team, social studies, and professional development. And we wanted to welcome you and thank both Tina and Catherine for the materials they've put together for us. ESTA has some new requirements for this year, and participatory budgeting is one of those for our CSI school. So this is our first time going through this process. We know the first time is usually a little painful for folks to do something brand new, but we're really excited to have you on board. You'll become our veterans next year, and we plan on doing this for 3 years minimum with these 7 schools, and other schools may be added to the list in the coming years. So our success this year is very important in setting the stage for what we're going to be able to do going forward. So as we go through this, if anybody has questions, we're happy to help answer those.
Great. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. Well, we have a short PowerPoint that we'll walk through, but before we do that, we wanted to make sure everybody received this. It should be attached to the email invitation. It's a little kind of introductory PB 101 kind of manual that we thought would be useful to you as you start to think about how PB is going to be used in your schools. And let me just share my screen here. And let's see. Can everybody see that? Slides should come up to say participatory budgeting.
Yes, thank you.
Great. We can always see Christian. So Christian, you're going to be the
communicator.
That's right. You are the voice of the district. Great. Well, we wanted to start with some basic introductions. Let me see if I can, there we go. And talk a little bit about why we're here. We already told you who we are and what PARC does, and we're really excited to be a part of this and to help you all think about participatory budgeting. We talked a little bit from the school district team. We heard from Suzanne. I'm wondering who in this room is from Corcoran High School?
I am.
Is that you, Carrie Ann?
Carrie Ann Kirby, yep.
Great, fantastic. And anyone from Nottingham? Not yet. How about Lincoln Middle School? All right. Clary Middle School?
Yep. I've got it.
All right, great. That was you. M. Clark, is that right? What about Roberts, K through 8?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep. Yeah, this is just, I'm here as well.
Fantastic. And Bellevue? Oh, all right. And Seymour?
Yep, right here.
Right, fantastic, good. All right, well, we have a good portion of the schools represented. And for those who aren't able to come, you'll notice, maybe you can see up in your corner a little thing that says recording. So we're recording this, we're making a video, and it will be shared with all of you and everybody else on the school teams so that we can help familiarize people with PB. So we thought we would start with some of that. And how many of you, has anybody used Zoom before?
No.
Okay, so I see some heads shaking yes, and I heard some no's. So Zoom is a pretty fun, fairly new tool that helps with video conferencing. On your screens, down at the bottom of your screens, let me close this for just a minute. You can see I can share materials with you, so I'm doing a screen share right now. I'm gonna stop that. At the bottom of your screens, there's a little microphone icon. You can mute that if there's a lot of background noise, and unmute it to speak. You can start and stop video if you have video cameras. And there's also a little, what do you call that, Catherine? A little chat box, a little kind of chat cloud there,
Yeah.
chat bubble. And you can click on that and you can send a chat to the whole group, a question to the whole group, privately to individual people. And so if you have questions that come up, please feel free to shout them out as we're going along or to send them to us in the chat function. We'll be monitoring that as we go on. And then there's definitely time for some Q&A at the end. Make sense? Any questions before we get started? Okay, great. Well, I'm going to share the screen again. Can you see all of that? Is the slideshow is up? All right. So backing up through our agenda, we thought we'd start out by giving a little bit of a basic overview of participatory budgeting, talk about how PB is being used in schools around the world. And then we would talk specifically about what's going to happen in the Syracuse City School District. So first of all, and as you probably all know, Syracuse is joining the many list of school districts around the world that are using PB as a really exciting way to help get student, parent, and community voices involved in determining how we spend public money. So we're starting this project as a 3-year project. We're in year 1, the pilot year, and this will go over the next 3 years in 7 schools: Corcoran, Lincoln, Roberts, Seymour, Nottingham, Clary, and Bellevue. We're starting year 1 now, which means we have a lot of work to do if we're going to get this wrapped up by the end of the academic year, which is June 30th, 2020. And today we're giving you what we're calling the general PB training, right? This is PB 101. And our goal is really to help starting to prepare all of you as your school teams to think about what you're gonna do to implement PB and how to make PB a success in your schools. Well, this is, okay, great. So, so what is participatory budgeting? Has anybody heard of participatory budgeting?
And I'm going to send this to you.
No? It's a brand new idea to you? Yeah, okay. Well, PB is this really, I think, exciting democratic innovation. It's this new way of engaging people in thinking about how we can spend public resources, how it's engaging everyday average citizens and residents in making decisions about how we spend public money. This process started in 1989 in Porto Alegre, Brazil, when the Workers' Party won their election, and they really wanted to create all sorts of new ways to get citizen voices involved. And it's been used there every year since, as tens of thousands of people participate annually in the budgeting process. And so this small city in Brazil has really become this innovator that has grown, that has gotten worldwide attention for how it thinks about citizens, how it engages citizens, and how it gives them voice and authority in deciding how we're going to spend public money. Since its start in 1989 in Brazil, it has now been used in over 3,000 cities around the world, on every continent except Antarctica, And it's been used increasingly here in the United States. So Chicago was one of the first cities to adopt participatory budgeting, and it's being used in its wards at the municipal level, at the district level. New York City started a few years ago, again at the district level, engaging citizens in decision-making around how to spend discretionary money. Vallejo, California has started this process, and lots of other little cities are using it in different places around the country. Most often, participatory budgeting happens at the city level, at the municipal level. And by that, I mean the city sets aside a portion of its budget and lets citizens come up with ideas about how to spend that. But beyond those municipal projects, we are increasingly seeing participatory budgeting being used in and by county governments, state governments, single government agencies like parks and recreation departments, universities, school systems and districts, single schools within districts, and by lots of coalitions and institutions around the country. So this is a process that's gotten a lot of support for thinking about new and different ways of giving citizens voice, authority, and decision-making power over public resources. And as you might imagine, advocates love public participatory budgeting, right? And they will make all of these claims about why participatory budgeting is special and how it's different from those kind of traditional ways of public engagement that we think of, you know, the public meetings or traditional public meeting process at city government. And so advocates will say that PB is special because it gives citizens real voice, right? It gives them the ability to propose ideas, to deliberate with one another about needs, to develop ideas into full-fledged proposals, and to really defend and articulate why those proposals are going to achieve some kind of public good, some kind of better outcome. And that kind of voice can really create social change. It can be very empowering to people, help them develop a sense of efficacy, that their voice matters, that decision makers will listen to what they're doing. But beyond just voice, it also gives people decision-making authority through voting. So beyond just proposing ideas, citizens get to vote on the ideas that they think are the most powerful, the most likely to succeed, the most likely to have impacts, and that voice gives people real political authority, not just kind of perceived authority. There is evidence to suggest that participatory budgeting can lead to improved social justice outcomes, because the process is really aimed at getting more and different kinds of people involved in than those traditional participatory processes. And by bringing those new voices to the table, we're hopefully meeting and creating outcomes that are going to be broader and more diverse and reach more segments of the community. And then finally, participatory budgeting upholds transparency, right? Because everything is done in the public eye, from the statement of problems to the creation of ideas and development of proposals and voting. It helps people monitor public money, monitor public spending. And so there are lots of reasons to believe in the power of PB. Interestingly enough, the academic research, the kind of empirical evaluations of PB are not as rich and robust as we would like, but we are seeing increasing evidence of long-term community impacts in places where PB is used regularly. So citizens, participants who engage in participatory budgeting tend to feel more empowered, more trusting in government. Their civic attitudes change. They also have greater knowledge and understanding of what government does, its budgets, its processes, how financing works. Beyond just those attitudinal changes, there are also changes in political participation and civic engagement. Political participation and civic engagement. So people don't just think differently about engagement, they actually behave differently as well. Participatory budgeting, there's some evidence to show that it changes how elected officials and public servants think about citizens and how they interact with citizens, because these processes give evidence that citizens can come up with good ideas, that they can make choices, that they are able to develop proposals and think about things in a more systemic way. So public servants, elected officials have greater respect for citizens and their ability to engage in processes. And then finally, what we're seeing in Brazil, where participatory budgeting has been used since 1989, is really strong improvements in social well-being, especially in areas like health, sanitation, education, and poverty alleviation. And that's because citizens are able to direct projects to needs that they identify in the community. Any questions so far about participatory budgeting? And by the way, I muted everybody just because there was some background noise. So if you do have any questions, just click unmute on your microphones and jump right in. So some of you are probably thinking, well, this sounds really great, Tina, but how does this process work, right? So there is tremendous variation in PB processes. The way it works in Brazil and Porto Alegre is different than the way it works in Rio de Janeiro. The way it works in Brazil is different than in Lithuania. Chicago's process is slightly different from New York processes. Despite all of those variations, all PB processes have 5 common steps. So first, a steering committee works together to design the process, to figure out what's going to be done, how it's going to work. Training materials and implementation plans are created. In the second stage, it's all about collecting ideas from the citizens, from residents. Participants learn about participatory budgeting, they discuss their needs, they brainstorm ideas, and they submit project ideas. Then those project ideas are given to a pre-designated group, a steering committee, a PB school team, who takes those ideas and transforms them into proposals that are feasible and that meet certain guidelines or criteria. In the fourth stage, those proposals are presented back to the public and people vote on which projects to fund. And then the final stage is funding and implementing the projects. So winning projects are announced, money is given, implementation steps are taken, troubleshooting is done to deal with any issues that might emerge. So that's the 5 basic steps of participatory budgeting, regardless of where it's used and in what context. And now I'm going to turn it over to Catherine, who will talk a little bit about participatory budgeting in schools.
Participatory budgeting started in 1989, as Tina mentioned. And it took a while for it to enter schools. And so it entered schools in roughly 2013 in Phoenix, Arizona, which we'll talk about in a second. But I think the goals were pretty much the same, with one that I would really add. Obviously, PB in schools, which involved mainly students in coming up with ideas to make schools more exciting or to increase student performance. The major goal was to increase the voice of students in decision-making, but there was really a curricular desire to build civic skills and to engage students in civic processes so that when they left schools, they would be better citizens. They'd be used to voting, they'd be used to engaging in debate about public issues, and they would have much more of a sense of comfort with being a citizen, and actually a more activist definition of what a citizen is. On the other hand, there was a great desire to build stronger relationships with communities, to allow parents, community members in general, the opportunity to engage directly in what the schools might do to spend money to make student achievement increase. And then obviously, one of the points of this is to get great ideas. And students are creative. They think out of the box. They don't think the way that people like Tina and I think, or principals or teachers. And so generating ideas from the perspective of the student is obviously a goal of PB. However, as Tina mentioned, with the normal PB, PB in schools also is highly variable. So you'll see examples where there's one school in a district, multiple schools, or in the case of Phoenix and New York City, it's an entire district. In some cases, PB only focuses on the students. So it's a completely contained process whereby students come up with ideas and vote on those ideas. In other cases, it involves students, parents, teachers, community. Sometimes PB is supported with some curricular elements, but it might be one lesson plan or a day of PB. In other cases, PB is integrated into an entire curriculum, in some cases for 4 years of social studies training. The budgets vary dramatically, anywhere from $500, $1,000. which of course would not include any sort of capital project, but might be great ideas about books for the library or different colors of basketballs, all the way to large capital budget projects. And some examples which you can see in the booklet, if you've got it in front of you, I think are pretty interesting to give you a sense of what people chose. So notice it indicates that in Phoenix, some of the things that won were a 3D printer. I like this one, and a digital camera that attached to the microscope so that the students could take pictures of some of the lab experiments that they were engaged in. Charlottesville, where they were engaging actually 6th graders, so younger students, they came up with sports tournaments, student awards. Some high schools in Lithuania came up with outdoor study space. And New York City, which is an example that we're all watching, because in 2018, the mayor announced this as a district-wide effort. So this is really huge, even though it's still in its beginning stages. The first PB in New York was pretty modest, where the schools were working with $2,000, which is not a huge amount of money. But they came up with some interesting ideas, framing for greenhouses, filters for water fountains. Notice lately, there are some PB projects in New York where they're getting a lot of money. As it says here, $500,000 in capital funds, $10,000 per school. And therefore, the ideas that those schools are coming up with are much more substantial, including things like movie nights, campus carnivals, etc. So again, the point is that these things vary quite widely, both in terms of process as well as the kind of money the schools are working with. Okay. Want to move? Yeah. So what are the goals for the Syracuse district? As you can see from the slide, many of the things that we've mentioned before. I do think in Syracuse, there's a real emphasis on community engagement, which may not be present in other schools. And as Tina will talk about in a minute, we're using a process in Syracuse, which I think is a bit different, and I don't know if it's unique, but where we'll be combining large groups of community members as well as a student-centered effort. And again, that's because the Syracuse City has already begun a number of community engagement efforts, and they want to continue to achieve that goal. Other things, obviously improving student achievement, but one of the things that's important, and I can say that because we met with your superintendent the other day, and he mentioned in particular that he's very serious about advancing not only the district strategic plan, but your building plans. And so when we meet with the school teams, we'll be looking at those plans to think about, well, what are some aspects of PB that should be prominent to make sure that there's alignment between the PB process and your strategic plans. Strengthening stakeholder input, I think, again, the school engagement, school community engagement is key here. Developing student leadership, civic engagement, confidence, increasing sense of social responsibility, and imparting critical career and life skills. Now, as we'll talk about in a minute, we're not going to be achieving all these goals, particularly in the first pilot year. And so one of the things that we'll be talking about probably on March 11th, as we meet with the school teams, is what can be achieved, particularly this year, and what sort of evaluation methods do we want to use to make sure that we've achieved our goals. So Tina, you want to?
Yeah. Any questions so far? All right, well then let's get down to some nitty-gritty details of how this is all going to work. So we have some broad goals in mind. These are not our goals. These are goals that came from the superintendent, from the steering committee at the district level, from the New York State Education Department, the board. So these are goals that others have set out. So how is this going to work for all of you? The first question we want to say is, who's involved here? So there are basically 3 teams that are going to be working together to do all of this work. At the district level, we have the steering committee. This is Suzanne and her team. Their job is to really oversee the PB process across the 7 schools to make sure that things are moving along and to help support the school teams as they do their work. Each of the 7 school teams, each of the 7 schools has created a team that's going to guide the implementation of PB at the school level. So if you're from Corcoran or Bellevue or Seymour or Clary, your teams will work together to implement the process. And then Catherine and I are your support team. We're going to provide you with everything that you need to move forward with PB. So we're going to give you this training. We'll have another training on March 11th. We're going to give you all of the materials, lesson plans, idea collection sheets, everything that you need to move forward with this, including a step-by-step guide manual. And we'll provide support and coaching as your efforts go along. So 3 teams. We mentioned before that PB will happen over 3 years. Year 1 is your 2019 and 2020, this academic year, and everything for this first year needs to be done by June 30th. And so we have a whole timeline laid out for all of these things. Once year 1 is implemented, and we're thinking about year 1 as a pilot project. This is the year where we're introducing teams and students and the communities to the ideas of participatory budgeting. We're helping to get people excited about what's going on, and we really want to have successful implementation of this pilot. At the end of year 1, moving into year 2 in 2020 and 2021, and then year 3, 2021 and 2022, we're hoping to have PB more deeply integrated into the curriculum. And we'll be working with school teams and particularly your social studies leads and perhaps others to think about what this might look like and how that might be more deeply integrated into the work that you're doing. So we have this going across 3 years. And in year 1, the PB projects have to have certain criteria in order to be funded. So first of all, they can be up to a $5,000 expense. And we might have several ideas that come out. I'll talk about our idea generation process in just a minute. But you might have students that say, we would like to buy books for the library on famous musicians. And another group say, we want to have books about diversity and engagement, or we want to have books about sustainability. And maybe we combine all of those project ideas, and they add up towards something that is $5,000. So up to $5,000 per school. This has to be a one-time non-recurring expense or something that could be funded in subsequent years by the PTO or by school budget allocations. So no recurring expenses that have to be funded every year unless there's some other source of money for that. We want the projects to link back to the student achievement initiatives that are happening in the district level and at your school. Ultimately, the goal of this project is really to improve student outcomes. And so as we're thinking about ideas, we want to be able to say, here's how we think this will help student achievement. Of course, ideas have to be in compliance with laws, regulations, and policies. That's of course true. And then they have to be something that can be completed by June 30th, 2020. And you'll see in the little manual that we sent out, there are some ideas of things that could be funded and could not be funded. But we really are hoping that this idea collection phase, this is to give us as a PB team some guidelines, some boundaries around what's possible. But we're hoping that through idea collection, we're going to get some really creative ideas from students and from parents and community members. So we want to be open to all sorts of ideas. In terms of the process, I want to walk us through the 5 stages of PB in the Syracuse City School District. So Catherine and I have already worked with the steering committee. We've been working extensively through the months of January to design the process. And we think we have a really good plan for helping everybody to be successful and to do some really exciting things in year 1. And so in February now, through this general training, and in March, all of the school teams will begin to implement PB in their school. And so that means between now and then, we're going to give you some information to help you think about recruiting people to your public meetings, getting the word out about participatory budgeting. On March 11th, there will be an in-depth training where we walk you through every step of the PB process. After that, in March, there will be through an in-class exercise that takes place in the social studies courses, 45 minutes class plan, plus a larger community meeting where people learn about PB, they identify needs, they brainstorm ideas, and they ultimately submit ideas. We will collect those ideas and sort those for you and then present them to each of the PB school teams. And each school team will then work with the steering committee to turn those project ideas into full proposals. And we will give you criteria for helping to think about how to narrow, how to filter those, how to kind of package those and think about proposals. Those full proposals will be submitted to the steering committee, who will then post those proposals on each school's balancing act platform. Voting will take place for students and parents online. And then in May, the winning projects will be announced, funded, and implemented. And you can see that timeline presented here in a little more detail. It's also presented in quite a bit of detail in the report. So today, February 4th, you're having your general training. Between now and March 11th, we'll be reaching out, we'll be providing you with more materials. March 11th, you'll have the PB process training where we'll all come together and we'll work through that manual step by step so that you walk out of that room feeling confident about what you have to do and how you have to do it. March 23rd and the weeks of March 23rd and 30th, each school will do idea collection with one session with students and then through public meetings. In April, those ideas again will be transformed into proposal development. You'll have those first 2+ weeks in April to do that. April 17th, proposals need to be submitted to the steering committee, and then those will be posted on each school's balancing act. The week of April 27th will be voting, and then winners will be announced May 11th, and implementation will start happening shortly thereafter. At the end of June, by June 30th, as we said before, all of the projects will need to be fully implemented. And at that point in June, we'll also begin talking about how we can plan for PB in year 2, what worked, what didn't work, how we need to move forward, how we can think about curricular elements. And we're really looking to the school teams to help us think through that. You're the ones that work in your schools, you know what that's like, you know how things work. And so we really want to have a partnership with all of you to figure that out. Any questions? All right, well, let me talk just very briefly about next steps, and then we can open it up for some more discussion. So after this training, everybody should step back, look at your school teams. Do you have the right people in place to make this work? Are you missing people? Do you need more people? Is your team rich enough to help do all of this? Think about who else you might add to your team, and then send updates to Lauren at Central so that we can just keep track of everything and make sure that we're communicating appropriately to all of the teams.
You'll notice when you look at the school teams in the appendix that people have made somewhat different choices. So that's interesting to look at. Some have involved parents, some have not. Some schools will involve students because they want them to be part of proposal development. So as Tina said, you know, as you get deeper into thinking about how this will be implemented, you may want to be somewhat creative with how you design your school team.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I just have a question about the timeline. Well, 2 questions. You said that the winning proposals will be announced in May. So I guess not all of our projects will be funded then. Only certain projects will get funded?
That's right. So as the ideas are developed and submitted, we're hoping that there are going to be lots and lots and lots of ideas. And each PB school team will need to look through those ideas to say, what's within our guidelines, first of all? What's feasible for us to be doing? And of these ideas, what do we think are going to be the most likely to achieve our goals? And there will be probably some sorting and rearranging and combining of these proposals. And then those project ideas will get transformed into a proposal. So it might have a really, I keep coming back to libraries I'm not trying to push that idea on anybody, but it might be, the title of the proposal might be New Books for the Library. And then there will be a short paragraph description that talks about what kinds of books would be purchased, why this will be valuable for student achievement, and how much it will cost. And that little blurb will get posted to a balancing act. And students and parents, only students and parents are eligible to vote for this. So students and parents will be able to read all of the 4, 5, 6, 7 proposal ideas that are posted to balancing act, and vote, and the ones that get the most votes will be implemented. And
That add up to $5,000.
that up to $5,000. And I should say that each of the teams is going to be able to work with the district steering committee to help think about issues of feasibility and cost. So we want to try to make that process as easy for you. So there will be some kind of back and forth with the teams and the steering committee to think about what could really work here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I also was just curious about the fact that nothing is really like implemented until basically school is then over for us.
Right.
Right.
And then does that have any impact? Or, I mean, if it's like the books in the library, obviously like that would work still, but really the timing is.
Future generations.
Yes, the timing is definitely, it'll be, and that's something that I think we'll have to really work into and deal with the idea development, and help students understand that, and then also help parents and community members understand that these will be things that happen in June and will be set up for the next academic school year.
Got it.
And I'm sorry, Catherine, I didn't
No, I
know.
was saying, now in year 2, and year 3, the timing may be completely different and probably should be different. This got off to a later start. And so the hope is that in years 2 and 3, this would start early in the school year so that the students who voted and came up with the ideas would more immediately reap the benefits of their ideas.
I have a question. And this is a lot of information just to look at. It says,
Sure.
so May 11th, the projects are announced, but the purchasing deadline is May 15th. So it's a 4-day turnaround, which means the proposals will have to have the invoice and costs all on there.
I think let's turn that over to Suzanne to answer that question.
Right. And I was wondering, and obviously, are we going to be given a list of approved vendors?
Suzanne?
Oh, she's still there.
No, that's fine. It's fine. It's one I can ask later. I was just wondering.
Well, I'm not sure. So what'll happen is as the teams are working through the ideas and developing proposals, they will be working very closely with the steering committee, all the budget people at the district who will be able to help think about invoicing, vendors, costs,
Catherine?
purchasing
Oh, good.
deadlines.
Suzanne's back.
Great.
I'm sorry, I was talking on the phone, not the computer. I apologize. So I love you for knowing that there's a deadline for purchasing, so you get a bonus for that. We actually here at central office will take care of the orders for you, so the school doesn't have to worry about any of that. So if they're ordering books or they want to hire somebody to come do a carnival or whatever those things are, we'll take care of it here centrally so that you don't have to.
Okay, thank you. And is it any vendor or do they have to be approved prior?
We'll
The district.
we'll go through our approval process here. We won't burden you with that. Not knowing what they're going to come up with, we can't really go out and get a pre-approved list of vendors. We're hoping they're going to come up with ideas of things we haven't thought of or haven't done before. So we'll work on our end to expedite getting things through that process.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? I'm sure there are more. I guess maybe I'll just say a last couple of things about the next steps and then bring us all back together. So again, check out your school teams. Do you have the right people in place? As we end this training and work through February, Catherine and I will be reaching out to you through the school district steering committee to start giving you material so that you can begin community outreach. We want parents and teachers and students to get psyched about participatory budgeting, to get engaged early, to know that this is coming, to have this on their radar. So we're going to give you materials to help think about community outreach, not just about the PB program, but also about the public meeting that you'll be hosting. And again, we're going to supply everything you need for that public meeting, including facilitators. We want to make this as easy as possible for all of you to launch in your schools. So we'll get those materials to you in February. Be on the lookout for that. Mark your calendars for the process training, which will take place on March 11th from 12:30 to 3:30 at the Professional Development Center. And that's the day that we're going to hand to you a manual. We're going to sit down, we're going to walk through step by step of how everything is going to work, from the classroom session that happens for idea collection, to the public meeting, to the process for sorting through all of those different ideas, transforming them into proposals, ultimately getting them to the site. We're going to help you prepare for all of those things. But mark your calendars, that's the Superintendent's Day, March 11th, 12:30 to 3:30. We'll walk you through everything there. In the meantime, I'm going to turn this slideshow off and turn them all back over so we can see each other again in just a moment. But so if you have any questions after this session ends, we'll be sending out a link so you can re-watch it, because I know there's a lot of information that we shared with you. Everything that we shared is hopefully outlined fairly clearly in the little manual that was sent out today. And you should absolutely feel free to contact us with questions or concerns or comments or ideas. And also feel free to contact Lauren. We really are looking at this, Catherine and I, as being a partnership with the district and with the school teams. We're really excited about this process. We think it's really exciting that Syracuse is doing this. You're a leader on all of these things. And so our job and our goal is to help this be as easy and successful as possible for all of you. With that, I'm going to stop sharing the slides, but I can share these. I can make sure that copies of them are given to Lauren and distributed to everybody if that would be helpful. And then we are happy to have any questions. Feel free to post those into the chat box if you don't want to speak out loud, or just jump in and we'll answer anything that you have.
Are there any more questions?
Kevin?
Okay, well, this is Suzanne again. I wanted to, oh, go ahead.
Meeting. I've missed some pieces of the meeting, so I was just wondering if this was going to be after the live.
Yes, yes. So we recorded this whole training, and we will make sure to get a link to the district who will send it out to all of the school teams. So you can all have the great pleasure of watching this again, and also sharing it with your colleagues who were unable to attend. So you'll get a copy of this, a link to a recording of this training.
You'll also notice that we linked in this training guide, we linked to some websites that talk about what other schools have done. So if you're interested in getting a flavor for how this works in other schools, please look. And again, you're going to see that some of them are pretty short processes that are similar to what's happening here. Others are much more involved with a very integrated curriculum. But feel free to look at them. It's kind of fun to see what other schools have done. Christian, did you have a question before?
Just where's the funding coming from? Is it like district money that we're using, or is it like, how does it work?
I'll let Suzanne and her team answer that question. Let me unmute them.
Are they muted? Oh.
Just muted. There we go. Suzanne, could you answer the question about where funding comes from? Suzanne? Well.
Tell them. Well, the money is coming from the district budget. It's not NICEAD money. So it is district money, and it's been committed for 3 years. And then we'll see what happens. And, you know, if it's spectacular and the board loves it, maybe there'll be a district-wide effort like New York, but that's up to what happens over the next 3 years. But right now it is district money that's funding the initiative.
And I just got a little note from Mary and the team that said they're having some audio issues on their end. So apologies from them.
And if I said anything wrong, Suzanne, just send out a note to everyone.
Any other questions or concerns?
I think part of what we're excited about is working with you on March 11th, because the evaluation that has been done at the school level indicates that the kids get really excited about this. And if you do look at some of the websites where they talk about presentations that the kids do, the voting process, all sorts of other stuff, it really can be a wonderful opportunity for the kids to engage and again to feel empowered, but also just generally get excited that they're having input. And while $5,000, you know, it's certainly not $1 million, but you know, to a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, or to me actually, you know, $5,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So again, we're, you know, part of what I think we're excited about is shadowing you as the kids develop these ideas. We've done a lot of large-scale meetings with community, and so we have a pretty good sense of what that's going to look like. We've done lots and lots of those meetings, but we really haven't had the opportunity to work with the students. I mean, we do university students and engagement, but we've not had the opportunity, frankly, to work with elementary, middle, and high school students, and we're really looking forward to that. So thanks for that opportunity.
How many of you are excited?
Christian is.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, look, and we've got all the people we can see, Nicole, Antonia.
We choose to believe all of your answers. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. We look forward to working with you.
See you soon.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.